أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين، واللعن الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. What is an addiction? An addiction is the need for something to the point that you lose self-control. The dependency on a substance, on a behavior, the dependency to the point that you lose self-control. It takes over the mind. It takes over your self-control. You cannot control yourself. You lose the ability to think logically and rationally. The need for a substance to the point that you can't think logically and rationally. You do what it takes to satisfy that craving, that need, that want. You know that it's wrong. You know that it's not doing you a service. It's harming you. It's destroying you. But you can't control yourself. You can't stop yourself. You need it. You want it. You're willing to do whatever it takes. You're willing to take risks, break the law, risk your relationship with others, risk your reputation, just to satisfy this need, just to satisfy this addiction or this bad habit. Some addictions can be very deadly. They could harm you, like drug addictions. Some drugs can be very harmful. They can destroy your life. They can destroy your health. They can be very deadly, depending on the drug. Other addictions are not as deadly, but they can be very harmful for you and for others. Like smoking. Smoking is an addiction. Many of the people who smoke, they're addicted to smoking. And the problem with smoking is that not only does it destroy yourself, it destroys your heart, your lungs, it destroys your health, but it destroys the health of those around you, your family members, through secondhand smoke. It hurts them. There are some form of addictions, they don't destroy your health, they don't destroy your physical health at least, but they could destroy your mental health. They could destroy your relationships or your marriage, like addiction to pornography. It has an effect, perhaps not on your physical health, but on your mental health. It could develop psychological problems for you, such as depression. There are some addictions that can destroy your economic life and make you lose all of your money, like gambling addictions. It'll ruin your life and you lose all that you have. Now the question is it possible to overcome an addiction? Is it possible to overcome a bad habit? You know, there's addictions, the things that we mentioned, and there's bad habits. It's a bad habit. It's not necessarily something that is haram or a sin. It's not something that is necessarily illegal and you're breaking the law, but it's a bad habit. It's something that you've been wanting to stop. It's something that you want to control yourself, but you haven't been able to. Is it possible to overcome an addiction or a bad habit? Absolutely. Absolutely, it's possible. And we know it's possible because there's millions of people that have been able to overcome their addiction. There are millions of people that have been able to overcome a bad habit. And so can you. And so can everyone. And you've been telling yourself that I want to overcome this addiction, I want to overcome this bad habit, and you've been putting it off. Now here's the chance. Here's the chance to make a decision, to overcome this addiction, to overcome this bad habit, to make a decision and stick to the decision until you come out victorious. And we are here to help you. We are here to walk with you in this process, in this journey. It's very much possible. It's very much possible to overcome this addiction, this bad habit, and this is what you will decide on doing in the month of Muharram, in the month of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. You seek support from Imam Hussein alayhi salam. You seek inspiration and motivation from this great Imam in this month, and you stop your addiction. First of all, before we get started, there's different kinds of addictions. When we say an addiction, people have all kinds of addictions. They're not all the same. Someone might have one form of addiction, while someone else will have a second form, a third form. And there are some that can have several kinds of addictions. So let's pinpoint them out. One, and this is quite abundant, this is quite, it's not rare, smoking addictions. There are many people that are addicted to smoking. Most smokers are addicts. They are addicted to smoking, meaning that it is not easy for them to stop. It is not easy for them to quit. They feel that their life depends on it, or that their day depends on it. They can't go throughout the day without smoking, without taking a break. Now the problem is that smoking has been proven scientifically to harm your health. Depending on the amount that you smoke, it could damage your health. It damages the lungs. It damages your throat. It damages your heart. It could cause heart disease. It can cause heart attacks in the future. It could destroy your arteries, and it could cause cancer. It can cause lung cancer to the minimum. And we live at a time of COVID-19. And it's been proven that the coronavirus is more detrimental and more harmful to smokers than it is to non-smokers. Because smokers have a very weak lung. They have weak lungs. And the coronavirus, it hits the lungs. So if you have lungs that are already weak and destroyed, the coronavirus can easily come in, destroy what's remaining of it. Now, is smoking halal, haram? That's another topic. Most scholars say it's halal. Some scholars say it is haram. Some say that if it is proven to be detrimental to your health, if you smoke a lot to the point that it's detrimental to your health, it's haram. Otherwise, it's halal. We are not talking about whether it's halal or haram right now. We're talking about whether you can overcome this addiction or not. Everyone agrees that it's an undesirable behavior. Even smokers themselves admit that if I'm able to quit, I would quit. They're not proud of what they do. They're not happy that they're smoking. They're not only hurting themselves, but they're hurting those that are around them. A smoking husband affects his wife, his children. A smoking wife affects her husband, her children, and so on and so forth. You're not only hurting yourself, but you're hurting others, and you're spending an awful amount of money on cigarettes. This is one form of addiction. Another form of addiction, nastajiru billah, is alcoholism. Those that are addicted to alcohol, and they become alcoholics. They're constantly drunk. They live off of alcohol. This is not only detrimental to their health, to their livers, to their kidneys, but they're also putting themselves and others in danger. Usually alcoholics, they don't just stay at home, they go out and drive under the influence. So they are risking their lives, and they're risking the lives of anyone else who's on the street. And many of them end up in jail. This addiction could end you up in jail. You could end up killing someone, if not killing yourself. So this is very dangerous. Alcoholics tend to lose their families. No one wants to live with an alcoholic. They'll get divorced, they'll lose their children, they'll lose their job, and they could lose their lives. Another kind of addiction, which is a growing trend in some of our communities in the West, is the drug addiction. This is a problem among the youth. Being addicted to drugs, all kinds of drugs. Especially now that some form of drugs are being legalized in some states, in some countries, in some parts of the Western world. This is a growing problem, even in the Muslim community. This is a problem. Some say, well, what's the big deal? There are some drugs like marijuana that aren't very harmful. They don't harm the health. They don't kill. It's not a big deal. First of all, it does harm your health. It harms your lungs, and it impairs your judgment. You could get in a car accident. You risk your life, and you risk the lives of others. And for some, it could become a gateway drug, meaning it opens the doors to other drugs, other very dangerous drugs. So it starts off small, but it could end off with heroin. They could kill. They could ruin your life. Drugs have a very negative effect on the user, on the individual, on his work, on his school, on his business. It costs a lot of money. A lot of drug users run out of money. They go into debt. They could even get themselves into trouble. So this is a growing problem in some of our communities. Another form of addiction that some people have is addiction to pornography. So this addiction might not harm your physical health. It might not harm your physical health, but it can ruin your life, especially if you're married. It can ruin your love life. Even if you're not married, in the future you will be married. This sort of addiction can stick with a person for several years. If you're single, you might think, what's the big deal? But when you're married, it could destroy your marriage. This sort of addiction, being addicted to pornography, it could make you unsatisfied with your spouse. You will not be satisfied. It could lead to negative sexual behaviors. And it could ultimately cause unhappiness for you. It could even cause depression for you. It might not kill you. It might not cause great physical harm for you, but it can take a negative toll on you and on your marriage life. Another form of addiction is gambling. And this is also common in some communities, especially if there's casinos or there's underground casinos. Some people who have financial difficulties and problems, they think they could fix those problems by going into gambling, making easy money. The problem with gambling is that, and this is the addictive part, is that you make easy money once, twice. You haven't spent much, all of a sudden you've won $1,000, $10,000, $20,000, while you would have to work an entire year or 4 months, 5 months, 6 months to earn that money. It comes to you in an instant. And that's where the addiction grows. You want that easy money again and again and again. But the problem with gambling is that you win once, you lose 20 times. You win $10,000, but you lose $100,000. And you go into debt. And you lose your money. And you lose your house. And you lose your credit. And you're forced to selling your furniture. And you're forced to selling your house. And you're forced to move to another city. You might even get yourself in trouble with the mafia or with the mob. And you risk your life and the lives of family members. You see, with all of these addictions, the repercussions are great. The addict doesn't think of them at the moment. But when he thinks of the results, if you think of the results could be detrimental. You could be destroying your life, the lives of those around you. You could end your marriage. You could lose your job. You could end up in jail. You could end up killing yourself and killing others because of some of these addictions. Some people say, well, I am forced to do drugs. I'm forced into doing alcohol. Why? Because my life is tough. I have a tough life. I have a lot of problems. I'm dealing with a divorce. I have problems with my wife. I have problems with my children. I have problems at work. I'm not doing so well financially. I lost my job. And hence I drink. And hence I do drugs. This is why I smoke. It's because I have a stressful life. I have to deal with anxiety. I have exams. I have midterms. I have a final exam. I have to write a paper. I have to get into this university. I have to get good grades. I'm under a lot of pressure. I'm under a lot of stress and anxiety. And so I drink, or I smoke, or I do drugs. Because it helps me cope. It helps me deal with my issues and my problems. This is not correct. Alcohol, drugs, and smoking don't solve anything. It doesn't solve anything. If you drink, does that solve your financial problems? When you do drugs, does that get you out of debt? When you smoke, does that stop you from declaring bankruptcy? These things don't solve the problem. None of them do. They only take your mind off. They only make you forget. You're avoiding the problem. You're not solving the problem. When you drink, when you smoke, when you do drugs, of course, I'm putting them all together. Although some are halal, some are haram. Smoking could be considered halal. Drinking is considered haram. And again, I'm not talking about whether they're halal or haram. This is besides the point. I'm talking as addictions, as problems for you. Something that you want to get rid of, something that's destroying your life. Of course, it varies. Smoking doesn't destroy your life like alcohol. It doesn't destroy your life like drugs. But still, it's a bad habit. It's something that's not good for your health and not good for others. These things, they only take your mind off of the problem. They make you forget the problem. They're not solving the problem for you. They're not fixing your debt, nor are they fixing your marriage, nor are they solving your problems with your children, nor are they providing you with a good job, nor are you getting promoted at work. They're not solving the problem. In fact, they add to your problem. They could add to your problem. You could get arrested. You could kill someone. You're harming your health. You could get cancer. These addictions are adding to your problem. They're not solving your problem. If you want to solve your problem, solve it in a real way. Face reality. These are fake solutions. These are not real solutions. You're only taking your mind off. You're forgetting. You're getting drunk. For the next 2, 3, 4 hours of getting drunk, you'll forget that you're in debt. You'll forget that you're getting a divorce. You forget that you have a problem. But once the effect of alcohol goes away, reality kicks in again. Once the effect of drugs goes away, reality kicks in again. And you're back to square one. What are you going to do? Remain drunk all the time? You can't do this. You'll be ruining your life this. You'll be ruining your life like this. Face the problems. You're in debt, do something about it. You have a problem with your husband, with your wife, do something about it. Fix your relationships. Fix your problems. Face your problems. And fix them. Seek real solutions, not fake solutions. Smoking is a fake solution. Alcohol is a fake solution. Drugs is a fake solution. It's not real solutions. Seek real solutions to your problem. You see, my dear friends, it all starts with this. Anyone who has an addiction, it starts with this step. First, you have to acknowledge that you have a problem. You have to recognize that you have a problem. You have to admit that you have a problem. There are some that refuse to admit. He's on drugs. He's addicted to drugs, but he won't admit it. He'll say, oh, it's not a big deal. I'm doing it for fun. I could stop at any moment. Really? If you can stop at any moment, stop today, right now. I'm not addicted to smoking. Smoking is not a big deal. Smoking is fun. It's not a problem. It doesn't even it doesn't harm my health. A lot of smokers, they'll beat around the bush. They'll make so many excuses. Well, lung cancer can be caused by this, by that, but they'll mention so many excuses for lung cancer. And they'll tell you that this person was a smoker and he lived until 92, 95. She was a smoker and she lived until 85. They don't want to admit that smoking is a problem, that smoking is detrimental to their health. They don't own up to the problem. They're not willing to acknowledge that they have a problem. Whether it comes to drugs or alcohol or smoking or pornography or gambling or any bad habit. Those who usually have bad habits, they won't admit. They won't admit that it's a bad habit. There are some people that sleep all day and are awake all night. This is a bad habit. Of course, this is not as equivalent as to drinking or gambling, but it's still a bad habit. They'll make excuses for themselves. That yes, I'm just as productive at night as I am during the day. This is not an excuse. Allah has created the night for sleep and the day for work. Any bad habit that you have, first you have to own it. First you have to acknowledge it. Admit to yourself that you have a problem. Otherwise you cannot change. How could you change if you don't admit that you have a problem? Can someone who doesn't admit that he's overweight ever exercise? Exercise begins after accepting the fact that you're overweight. Once you own this fact, once you admit it, then you begin to exercise. How can you get rid of an addiction if you don't even think it's a problem? If you live in denial, if you deny it to yourself and you deny it to your family members and your relatives and your friends, and you say that I don't have a problem. There's no problem, and you pretend that everything is normal. This is not a solution. The first step is that you embrace the problem. You say, yes, I have a problem. I have an addiction. You don't have to say it to people. Say it to yourself. You don't have to announce it on Facebook or write a tweet on Twitter and say that I have a alcohol problem. No. Admit to yourself. To yourself, say, yes, I do have a problem. And I need to overcome this problem. I need to change. I can't keep on living this way. Admit to yourself that it's a problem and accept it psychologically and emotionally. Embrace it. Then you'll be able to go to the second step and the third step. But if you live in denial, there's no way that you can change. Recognizing the problem is not enough. This is the first step. Then you have to come to a second step, and that is to make a decision to change. You become self-determined to change your habit, to change the addiction, to stop the addiction. Making a firm decision and not allowing yourself to soften up, not being easy on yourself. You know, with children, sometimes we make a decision, we tell them, for example, no more candy, or it's limited. But with the youngest child, we soften up. With the teens, maybe we're firm, we're rough. But with the little ones, we allow them to eat candy. Well, you can't do that with yourself. You can't soften up. Once you make a decision to change and to move on and to stop the bad habit and the addiction, remain firm. Stick to your decision. And remind yourself of this decision every day. Write it. Write it on a mirror. Look at it. The first thing that you wake up, look at that decision. That you've decided to stop this behavior. You don't have to put it somewhere where people see. And you could make a symbol of it. Write an X. Put a symbol that only you would know what it is. But remind yourself in the morning, in the evening, throughout the day. If some people know of your addiction, of your problem, of your bad habit, and they're trying to help you, let them know of your decision. They'll support you. They'll encourage you. Tell your wife. Tell your husband. Tell your close friends that you've decided to change, that you've decided to overcome this bad habit and addiction. They'll help you. They'll encourage you. They'll support you. They will stick with you. They will ask you, how are you coping? How are you doing? And this is important. Have a strong will. You know, as they say, if there's a will, there is a way. Human beings are capable of doing anything they want if they have a will. If they have a strong will, they can do it. If a human being can land on the moon, and a human being can reach Mars pretty soon, this human being cannot overcome an addiction, cannot stop smoking, or cannot stop drinking, or cannot stop drugs, or cannot stop gambling, or cannot stop pornography. Or if there's a will, there's a way. And tell yourself you can do it. This is very important. Making a decision is not enough. Tell yourself you can do this. You have the power, you have the energy, you have the will to overcome this addiction. Tell yourself you can do it. Imagine life without this addiction. Imagine life without this bad habit. Imagine a normal life. You wake up early in the morning, you go to work, you come back, you have a beautiful family, you live with them, a beautiful life. You go out with them on the weekends, you live a normal life without all these addictions, without all these bad habits. Imagine how beautiful life would be. Imagine that life. Put that image in your mind every day and remind yourself of it. Remind yourself of it every day. And make it your goal to reach that image and to live that image. You can do it. There's no will greater than the will of human beings except Allah's will. After the will of Allah, the will of human beings. Human beings can do what they want to do if they have a strong will. If they decide on doing it, they can do it. Tell yourself that others have done it. Why can't you overcome your addiction? Why can't you stop smoking? Haven't others stopped smoking? Why can't you stop gambling? Weren't there thousands of gamblers before you who stopped? Why can't you stop drinking? Why can't you quit your alcohol problem and stop being an alcoholic? Others haven't done it? They have. Many others have done this before you. You're not the first. And you're certainly not the last. You will not be the first person to stop this addiction. You're not the first and you won't be the last. Others have done it before you. So if others have, why can't you? If others who were in worse shape than you, if those who were doing heroin and cocaine, those who were constantly drinking, they're now sober. Now they have normal lives. Now they have everything together. They have a beautiful family. They're married. They have children. They're back to work. They were able to do it. Why can't you? Aren't you a human being like them? Don't you have a strong will like them? What makes you different from others? Nothing. If they were able to overcome their addictions, then so can you. Don't say it's impossible. I can't do this. No, you can, because others did too. Millions of others were able to overcome this problem, and so can you. Now there's something very important that any person with an addiction has to do, is to avoid triggers. What do I mean by this? You've made a decision to overcome this addiction, to move on, to start new. But there are certain things that triggers the mind that gets you back to that addiction. It plays with your head, with your mind. For example, going to certain places. If you go to certain places, it will remind you of your addiction. It will make you want to go back. For example, certain places will make you crave smoking cigarettes. You'll want to go back to smoking cigarettes. Avoid those places. There are certain individuals that will trigger you. For example, you used to do drugs with a certain individual, and you haven't seen this person in a while. When you see them again, it will be triggered. You will crave that addiction. Once again, avoid those individuals. Whether they're friends, their acquaintances, whatever they were, avoid them. Avoid triggers. Whatever it is that you feel will trigger you into going back into your addiction, whether it's a place, a person, a food, a drink, whether it's TV, whether it's the internet, whether it's your phone, whether it's your laptop, whether it's your house, your bedroom, whatever it is that is triggering you, avoid it. If you have a problem in staying in your bedroom because it will trigger you into doing something, avoid your bedroom. Sleep somewhere else. Sit somewhere else. If you go to certain places, you'll be triggered to drink. Avoid. Avoid triggers. That's very important. Another solution to overcoming addiction is educating yourself on that addiction. Read about your addiction. Look it up online. Google it. What are the effects of this addiction? What are the harmful effects? What are the side effects? What will happen to me if I continue smoking for 10 years, for 20 years? What sort of cancer will I develop? What sort of heart disease will I develop? Look, educate yourself, learn. What have you gotten yourself into? Read about the effects. Read about the experiences of others who dealt with this addiction and how they were able to overcome this addiction. Read about other people's experiences. Read about what they had to go through. Read about what it caused. Educate yourself. Knowledge is power. The more you educate yourself on this problem, the more you will develop a will and determination to stop, to overcome, because knowledge is power. Sometimes you need to seek professional help. Sometimes you've avoided triggers and you've made a strong decision and you've acknowledged that you have a problem and you educated yourself, but you still have this problem. You need to seek professional help. Seek professional help. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that. If you need to see a psychologist, if you need to see a psychiatrist to overcome your problem, to overcome your addiction, there's nothing wrong with this. You could keep it confidential. No one needs to know. But there's no shame. There's no shame in seeking help. There's no shame in wanting to change. There's shame in remaining the same, in not wanting to change, in remaining in that addiction. There's shame in that. There's no shame in wanting to change and to reform yourself and to have a better life. There's no shame in this. Absolutely not. And of course, in all of this, in all of these steps that you are taking to overcome your addiction or your bad behavior or your bad habit, whatever it is, even if it's halal, even if it's not haram, but you don't like it, it's stopping you from being successful. It's stopping you from enjoying your life. It's harming your marriage. It's harming your relationship. Whatever bad habit. It could be, for example, interrupting people. It could be anger. It could be shouting. Anger is a bad habit. Exhibiting anger is a bad habit. To some degrees, it's not haram. Unless you harm others, you curse at others. So there's bad habits and there's addictions. In all of this, in all of these steps that you've taken, remember the most important step from the beginning till the end. And this doesn't have to be at the end. It could be in the beginning. Rather, it should be throughout all of the steps. At-tawakkul ala Allah. Rely on Allah. Ask Allah for help. Ask Allah for support. Ask Allah to give you a strong will. Ask Allah to increase your determination. Ask Allah not to make you weak, to make you relentless, to make you strong. Ask Allah. Pray to Him. Seek His help. Do not underestimate the power of dua, my dear friends. From the beginning till the end. As soon as you acknowledge your problem, ask Allah for support and help. Do not underestimate the power of dua. Do not underestimate the power of Quran in this problem. A person who has an addiction, stick to the Quran. Recite Quran. Along with all the other steps. Do not underestimate the power of salah. Do not underestimate the power of the masjid, going to the mosque and attending Salatul Jum'ah, Thursday night, reciting Dua Kumail. All of these things will help you. They will increase your will. They will increase your determination. Do not underestimate the power of going to majalis, especially the majalis of Imam Hossein alayhi salam, especially during the nights of Muharram, where we learn about a courageous man that fought his enemy. We're inspired to fight our enemy as well, our inner enemy. This addiction is an enemy. Our nafs that tells us to continue smoking and doing drugs and drinking, or to watch pornography, or to gamble, or to do this, or to do that. We're inspired by Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the way that he fought his enemies relentlessly with all courage and bravery. We develop the courage and bravery to fight our nafs and to fight our inner enemy. We learn, we gain inspiration. We gain motivation from the story of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Remember, Yazid ibn Muawiyah was an alcoholic. This was one of the problems in Yazid. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam mentions this. Remember, last night we said that when Imam Hussein was asked by Al-Walid, the governor of Medina, to give allegiance to Yazid, what did Imam Hussein alayhi salam say? He said, "Inna ahlu bayt al-nubuwah wa mawda' al-risalah. Bina fatah Allah wa bina yakhtim." We are the household of Rasulullah. With us he began, and with us he shall end. وَيَزِيد رَجُلٌ فَاسِقٌ فَاجِرٌ. Yazid is a corrupt individual. شَارِبٌ لِلْخُمُورِ. He's an alcoholic. Yazid was an alcoholic. He had an alcohol problem. So who do you want to be like? Imam Hussein alayhi salam or Yazid? Look at the qualities of Imam Hussein and look at the qualities of Yazid. You cannot come to the majlis of Imam Hussein and claim to love Imam Hussein if you're not willing to overcome your alcohol problem, your drug problem. Yes, many people have problems. But those who love Imam Hussein decide to change, decide to do something about it. Yazid one day saw Imam Hussein when his father was still alive, when Muawiyah was still alive. He came to Medina from Sham and he saw Imam Hussein in Medina, and he was drinking, and he offered Imam Hussein a drink. Imam Hussein says, he told him, by God, I never allowed this drink to mix with my blood. I never allowed this drink to enter my system. Yazid had allowed it to overcome him. When As-Sayyidah Zainab Salamullahi alayha, they were brought to the palace of Yazid in Sham. After the tragedy of Karbala, after the tragedy, the women and children were taken to Kufa, and from Kufa to Sham, and they were brought to the palace of Yazid. Sayyidah Zainab entered the palace of Yazid, and she saw the head of Imam Hussein in front of Yazid. Yazid was drinking. He had a cup of wine he would drink. And from time to time, whenever his cup a little bit would remain, he would pour what is remaining on the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. What a tragedy. What a tragedy for Sayyidah Zainab to witness in front of her eyes. On the second day of Muharram, the caravan of Imam Hussein arrives to Karbala. The horse of Imam Hussein stops. He changes his horse, but the second horse refuses to move. He asks for a third and a fourth. None of them move. So he asks his companions, what is the name of this land? Ashabi mismu hadhihi al-ard. Someone said, Yabna Rasulullah, tusamma Nainawa. The name is Nainawa. Someone else said Al-Ghadhariya. Someone else said At-Taf. And they mentioned many names until someone said, and he kept on saying, وَهَلْ لَهَا اسْمٌ آخر? Does it have another name? Someone said, yes, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, اسمها Karbala. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, at the sound of this name, he said, Karbala, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-karbi wal-bala. أصحابي انزلوا فها هنا محط رحالنا ها هنا مذبح رجالنا ها هنا مسبى نساؤنا. Imam Hussein alayhi salam told them, this is where we will camp. This is where we will stay. As Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam comes out of her tent, she still feels safe. Her brothers, her sons, her nephews are all around her on a night like this. But on the eve of the 12th of Muharram, when they were about to leave Karbala, Sayyidah Zainab, today she entered, and on another day she had to leave. But where was Imam Hussein alayhi salam? He was no longer standing with her. Abul Fadl Abbas, her sons, her nephews, they were no longer standing around her. They were lying on the battleground, stripped of their armor, without their heads, without their armor, cut into limbs, into pieces. And Sayyidah Zainab has to leave and has to say goodbye to her loved ones, to her brothers, to her children. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العلي الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا عيبا إلا سترته ولا خوفا إلا أمنته ولا رزقا إلا بسطته ولا شملا إلا جمعته ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة لك فيها رضا ولنا فيها صلاح إلا قضيتها ويسرتها يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.